The minutes are being kept by recording. Shall we take a roll? Val Humble present. Karen?
Karen's present.
Kathy, I guess?
Kathy present.
And that's it at the moment, right?
Correct.
Mary Helen's not here and Eric's not here yet. Okay, is there any public comment? Anybody sign up to make comment or wish to make comment that hasn't signed up?
Here comes Mary Helen.
Okay. Welcome, Mary Helen. No public comment, then I guess we should proceed right on to the houselessness presentation.
Sounds good. So my name's Aster Moulton. I'm the Public Affairs and Community Relations Specialist with the Drainage Districts. Part of what I do is manage our response to houselessness in the drainage districts, as well as illegal dumping. Presenting with me is Michael Phelps, who's a program supervisor with Cascadia. Michael, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey, yeah, hi, I'm Michael, program supervisor with Cascadia Behavioral Healthcare Street Outreach Team, and I'm sort of the main point of contact for our contract and coordination with the Multnomah County Drainage District and the whole flood management system, as far as like playing a liaison between the homeless communities out there, Randy and the operations crew, and Aster, and just sort of everyone involved in the whole program. So thanks for having me and hearing what we do.
Welcome.
Yeah, all right. So Wendy, would you mind sharing your screen? Perfect. I'm not seeing it yet. Are other people seeing it?
Oh,
Looks black.
Yeah, it was up there a second ago and then it disappeared. Oh,
You want to try again?
try one more time.
There we go. All right. So our agenda for our time today. Second, I'm changing my view options on my screen. So I'm going to go over the program purpose, the background of the Houseless Coordination Program. Michael's going to give an overview of what Cascadia does. I'm going to go over what some of the crew safety challenges have been, the areas of work, and our overall response. And then Michael and I are going to talk about some program successes and challenges, and I'm going to touch on the fiscal year 22 program spending for Penn 2 so that you all have that information. Next slide, please. So
I'm not seeing any slides. Oh, here we go.
Okay, great. Is anyone else not seeing the slides? Are we good? Okay. I think silence is a good thing there. We have, three-tiered program purpose. The first is to provide education and supportive housing services to individuals living in the drainage district service area, with a focus on those located on or around flood safety infrastructure. Secondly, we want to clean up illegal dumping on and around our infrastructure, and we understand that illegal dumping isn't always related to houselessness. And really, those two goals build to what is our ultimate goal: to improve safety and efficiency in field operations for our MCDD crew so that they can keep doing their awesome work of ensuring that we have access to critical flood safety infrastructure. Next slide, please. So this program started as a 6-month pilot with Cascadia in 2018, and thanks to the board's support, this turned into an ongoing program, which in 2019 received the Special District Association of Oregon Award for an outstanding special district program. We're pretty unique as a public agency in having a service-first oriented approach when dealing with houselessness. A lot of public agencies jump straight to enforcement. And as we all know, since 2020, the drainage districts have experienced a higher concentration of both houseless activity, illegal dumping, as well as crime in the drainage district area. And once again, crime is not necessarily related to houseless activity, but we've seen an increase of all of that activity. And our response has expanded beyond just our contract with Cascadia to address some safety concerns that our crew has experienced in the recent years. The board's passed a resolution, adopted a resolution last fall, which has given us authority to manage houseless activity throughout our entire system, regardless of jurisdiction, which has given us a lot of opportunity to partner with public agencies that actually own the land that our flood safety infrastructure is on. Next slide. I'll pass it off to Michael to talk a little bit about Cascadia.
Hi, thanks, Aster. Thanks, everyone, for being here. Yeah, so Cascadia as a whole is very large, like the largest community-based mental health provider in the state. And our program, the street outreach program specifically, does street outreach efforts all over the county. As far as this program goes, our role is to do outreach throughout the whole drainage district, connecting and building rapport with the communities that are living in the floodplain, and provide opportunities for them to connect with mental health services, housing services, as well as any other kind of support services that we can get people connected to, referred to if they want those, as well as then also providing education to the people that are living out in the floodplain about low impact camping and the importance of maintaining the levee and flood management system's structural integrity, so that those folks know that they're living on, you know, man-made infrastructure, and that infrastructure is important for the safety of the public as a whole. In addition to that, we also provide you know, emergency safety outreach. If there is going to be a high water event, we've gone into low-lying areas to provide education and you know, warnings about safety issues that may arise with those high water events, as well as trying to get people out of areas that may be at risk of flooding during those events. And then also just during like severe weather, it's good for us to be able to have rapport with people who may not have access to some of the resources that folks staying closer into the city may have.
All right. If there are no questions for Michael, let's move on. So some safety challenges. Honestly, it's been pretty hard for our crew out there. This picture of the 142nd Cross Levee is a really good example of the conditions that our crew is working in, and all this trash and debris and interference with houselessness has led to mental fatigue and exhaustion and distraction while performing tasks. In some cases, there have been some instances of gun violence. No one's actually gotten hurt yet, but the crew has heard guns shooting off while they're doing work at Pump Station 4, coming from the Big Four Corners natural area, where there used to be a huge camp that's kind of dwindled down recently. And more recently, when they were doing some work at the Schmear Road pump station, behind the pump station, they recently heard some guns shooting off. So it's honestly a little traumatizing for the crew. These are people who just want to be doing their jobs, and you know, they also have to deal with hazardous materials, needles, and trash. And all this activity has led to disruption of annual maintenance. For instance, when they're doing their annual mowing operations, sometimes, you know, they see people sleeping in the tall grass. And while they have safety protocols to, you know, try to notice those individuals, there has been at least one really close call. And also sometimes, you know, the crew has to go in remote areas of slough to remove debris blockages, and some of those areas have been difficult to access because of some remote camping areas. And the crew has, you know, implemented a lot of different safety measures in areas that are particularly high risk. The crew has started wearing ballistic vests. Also in those areas, there's armed security now, and the crew is still hesitant to go out to some areas, and then that's why we've implemented a buddy system, and Randy's been really good at trying to make sure that the crew feels as comfortable as possible. And they're gonna implement some training, some emergency first aid trainings in case, you know, a terrible incident does happen. But really the work that we're doing, the work that Michael is doing is to try to make our crew feel as safe as possible, be as safe as possible when doing our normal operations and maintenance. So next slide. So I will go over the areas of houseless management and illegal dumping cleanup throughout the drainage districts. These are kind of the areas where we've done concentrated work. In Pen 1, we focused on Vanport wetlands. There were some individuals camped there, and that's an area that floods seasonally. So we wanted to make sure that those people were safe. There's also been some outreach done around I-5. In Pen 2, there's been slightly more outreach. I think there's Pen 2 activity is second highest, MCDD being the highest. So there's been some significant work done. There was a pretty big camp earlier this year at Northeast 2nd and Marine Drive. So we worked with rapid response to clean up that area in Cascadia to get people living there connected to services. We've done some repeated work around the Schmier Road pump station throughout the past year. We've maybe done 2 or 3 rapid response cleanups in response to camps emerging. And there's been a lot of outreach done along the Schmier Road levee as well, and Delta Park. Next slide, please. So MCDD is where the majority of the outreach has been done. There were about maybe 80 hours of outreach done in Pen 2 and about 160 in MCDD. Obviously, a big focus has been the Big Four Corners area near Pump Station 4. There's been some work down at the 142nd Cross Levee. We're working with the Port of Portland and the City of Portland on a series of cleanups and postings along the Marine Drive levee. And we worked with the Port of Portland as well to kind of clear, and as well as PBOT to clear out some buffer areas around the culverts that run under Northeast 32nd to keep the drainage in the airport moving in accordance with our IGA with the Port of Portland. Next slide. There has been the least amount of outreach in SDIC. The illegal dumping and houselessness is not as much of an issue in this area, but there has been some camping activity along Sundial Road, Sundial Wetlands, and along Marine Drive. Next slide. So talk a little bit about what our responses have been in more detail. So as I mentioned, our responses have been more robust than in previous years due to the increase of activity and safety concerns. Of course, we're still working with Cascadia. As I mentioned, we have a service first oriented approach when engaging the houseless community to avoid, when possible, trauma-related experiences when dealing with law enforcement. However, we will utilize enforcement as available in areas where long-term camping has resulted in either potential safety risks to our crew or extended operational delays. As we all know, MCDD doesn't have enforcement on staff, so we're really reliant on the support of partner agencies for that law enforcement support. And we've worked with Port of Portland Police as well as the Portland Police Bureau. We've also placed ecology blocks in Jersey barriers in key locations where we need to limit car and camping access so that our crew can have physical access to the infrastructure. In the case of Pump Station 4, our crew just simply wasn't able to get down there. The access roads were totally blocked. So we created some ecology blocks and a pathway to the pump station. And as I mentioned, we've implemented additional safety measures like armed security and ballistic vests so that our crew can feel as safe as possible when they're doing their work. We've also, as I mentioned, initiated cleanup activities of illegal dumping, and that's been done through our contract with Rapid Response, as well as in coordination with other partner agencies. Metro has a RID Patrol program where they go and and clean up illegal dumping on public lands. And we've also partnered with Solve, which is a nonprofit organization that hosts volunteer cleanup activities. And both of those partnerships have been really successful. And we're also implementing a signage program so that we can better communicate to not just the houseless community, but also the general public of what the expectations are of engaging with flood safety infrastructure. So you may see signage like this emerge throughout the drainage districts. And as I mentioned before, interagency coordination has been really key in us dealing with houseless outreach and illegal dumping. We don't often own the land, so we often partner with the City of Portland, Port of Portland, to help us with these activities. And special thank you to Jim Middaugh and his leadership and connections, which has really allowed us to leverage the other existing resources that are out there. Next slide. So I'll pass it off to Michael to talk a little bit about key successes from Cascadia's field outreach.
Oh, hi again. Thank you again, Master. Thanks everyone. Yeah, so some of the successes we've achieved are just building those relationships with some of the encampments that are interfering with the work that needs to be done in the drainage district. So being able to go into certain areas and let people know that the operations crew will be coming in and they're not here to cause any problems, and asking people to cooperate with those crews when they come in, as well as, you know, just trying our best to get the messaging out, the importance of low impact camping and avoiding damage to the levee system. We obviously, as an outreach team, we have no power to force people to move from where they're staying. So the best we can do is try to educate folks about the impact that their presence is having on the land and on the flood management systems. We were successful in, you know, helping assist people get connected with services and get connected with housing. Just this year, you may have seen on the news that there was a large structure built on Marine Drive right near I-205. And we connected with the people that were staying there, and I'm still in the process of finalizing his housing, but he is, one of the people that was staying there is getting into a permanent supportive housing placement where he'll have a long-term subsidy and thus be moving away from the drainage district. We've also had plenty of other examples of getting folks connected with housing or getting them connected with shelter. Encountered one lady a while back who was staying in her car and was pregnant along Marine Drive, and got her connected to the shelter and connected with services in a more long-term way. You know, I mean, some of the challenges are that people don't really have many other places to go and get comfortable where they're staying. So just continuing to provide the messaging of the importance of like not damaging the flood management systems and maintaining the integrity of those systems and structures. One other thing as far as dumping and trash and litter is we are able to connect with Central City Concerns Clean Start program, which provides trash removal services for homeless encampments. So we can, you know, every week we're out on the ground level passing out trash bags and other supplies and encouraging people to clean up their camps, keep it a little bit more tidy, and then, you know, tagging those locations for Central City Concerns trash removal programs to come through and take that trash away from the drainage district, with the hopes of, you know, reducing the amount of litter and clutter that can clog up pumps and waterways. So, you know, we can continuing to provide those services, getting people connected with support, as well as just, again, that general messaging of trying to avoid damaging the levee systems. And I think another thing, just being the liaison between Randy and his crew and the people staying out there, we've been able to identify some locations and situations that may pose a threat to safety for the crew and give them a heads up about those situations. You know, whether that's like an aggressive dog or aggressive combative people that are in various locations where they need to do work, having us out there getting a read on the situation and reporting it regularly back to Aster and back to Randy so that they can be better informed about the decisions they're making when sending crews into locations to do some work. So hopefully we can continue to provide that service and build it better and help the people who are staying out there and help you know, the drainage district and the whole levee and flood management system maintain its integrity and keep the town dry, you know. So thanks again. I'll pass it on back to Aster.
Thanks. Are there any questions for Michael before I continue?
I have a couple. I first I want to tell you how much I admire your work. Since the first time I met with you and you had much longer hair, and there was another woman that was the director of Cascadia Mental Health, and Karen Carrillo, I was amazed at the compassion that you have. So I want to say that. And also how much the project has grown and how much humanity that you've brought to the lives of the people that live there. But do you have difficulty connecting with other agencies? Because I know it's one of those situations where all kinds of people are doing, you know, different kinds of things. And the whole opening of Safe Rest Villages and Dan Ryan and those kinds of things. There's Neighbors Helping Neighbors in North Portland, Terrence Moses. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He goes out mostly North Portland, but he's has sort of the same compassionate approach as you do, as opposed to just go in and clear out the camps and not worry about where the people go. So is that a difficulty or something that we could advocate for? Or I guess, how could we help you do more of the wonderful things that you do?
Yeah, thanks, Mary Helen. I appreciate that. I think that we're doing our best to try to collaborate with other organizations. I wasn't aware of the one that you mentioned. I know that Aster and I have tried to connect with Cultivate Initiatives, but have had some trouble making that connection happen. I don't see a lot of folks like doing outreach in the drainage district. I kind of do feel like we're the only ones that are out there. I had an interaction with an outreach team last week near the camp, or at the camp near 122nd on Marine Drive. But they were from Janus Youth, who specifically focus on like people that are under 24, which there's not like a high demographic of that age group out in the drainage district. But yeah, I mean, the more help we can get, the better. I would be absolutely excited to get more organizations out doing some of the work along Marine Drive, on the cross levees, near Schmear Road, all over the place, because there's a lot of people that need help, and you know, our team only has so many people to provide those services and so much time to coordinate on that. So if there's any ideas that you have of other organizations that would want to help us out or coordinate with us, I'd be happy to talk to them and let them know what I know about the lay of the land out there.
I'll put you and Aster in touch with Terrence, because he's very good at going out and engaging the people. He's worked a lot with the Peninsula Crossing Trail issues and that whole, but he engages the people and gets them to help him do the cleanups. That's kind of his approach. And he wants to make people comfortable where they live or find them a safe spot to be. So I'll send that information to you.
Yeah,
But
that would be great, Mary Helen. And I just want to mention, I've tried to reach out to Terrence Moses a couple times, and he's just a very busy and passionate person, and he's been a little hard to get a hold of. But I think I would love to get connected
Terrence
with him.
is hard to get a hold of, but the woman that works with him, Pat Opdyke, She does all the connection, grant writing, bookkeeping, and so I'll put both of them in touch, and you'll probably hear from Pat long before you'll hear from Terrence.
Okay, good to
I
know.
think
Thank
he'd rather do the work than do the emails.
Yes,
Makes sense.
One additional thought I might offer to the board is we've had some contact with Multnomah County and the joint office, and obviously they have a lot of work on their hands. So I want to say this with the greatest respect for the joint office, but it would be great with some of the new homeless services dollars if the joint office could send more outreach workers out to the drainage districts. And they've been receptive to conversation, but again, we haven't seen a lot of resources coming that way. So reaching out to your county commissioner could, again, more in a thoughtful educational way, might be helpful.
All right, well, I know we have a limited amount of time and I still have a few more slides to get through, so let's keep going. So I wanted to just mention some other successes of the program. I'm sure you are all aware that there was flooding at Fairview Lake this past fall during Veterans Day weekend. And that was largely due to the fact that our crew was unable to access Pump Station 4 because of all of the camping and the debris that was in their way, as well as the gunshots that they had been in close proximity to in the past. But fortunately, we were able to leverage the support of different agencies, nonprofits, private towing companies to help give us access. And now we do have continual access with those safety measures in place, such as ballistic vests and armed security to keep Pump Station 4 working. And this is a picture of our crew at Pump Station 4 in early January during a very rainy weekend when it was really important to keep those pumps going. And yeah, the pumps worked, and that's what we want to see. Next slide. Other successes, there has been efforts now for about 6 months to clean up activity along the Marine Drive levee. I think our approach is to have a reasonable tolerance of houseless activity and really focus on maintaining integrity and keeping clean camps, because in most cases, these campers have nowhere else to go. That said, I think there is certain infrastructure that's really critical to our flood safety system, like the Marine Drive levee, that we really need to have just consistent and reliable access to. So we are working with Port of Portland and City of Portland and our contractor with Rapid Response to post in the area and provide alternatives for the individuals to be. And of course, that's done in close coordination with Cascadia. Right now, 122nd, that area has a lot of camping activity. So the Port of Portland and the City of Portland are leading a posting and cleanup activity. And then after that's done, our crew is going to put like a massive gate at our access road, which will hopefully keep that area clear and secure. We're also moving forward with another posting at around 138th. There's a small collection of campsites there as well. We've had a couple solve events along Marine Drive, and a really successful one was right after the area around I-205 was cleared out. We partnered with Solve to get a bunch of volunteers out there, and this was my favorite day. It was a beautiful sunny day, and we had on that day alone, I think it was over 50 volunteers picked up about 8 tons of trash in just 2 hours, which was really impactful and made a huge difference. And just want to mention some of our successes with Rapid Response. They've removed over 25 tons of trash over the course of 5 cleanup efforts in MCDD and Penn 2. Next slide. So some challenges and problems encountered. There in the past has been some limited law enforcement capacity. So our ability to post and then enforce has been difficult. However, in my more recent experience over the past couple of months, I've found that there is actually a decent amount of support from PPB and Port of Portland Police, especially in the posting of Marine Drive. there is often a public misconception that we as the drainage districts have the ability to enforce the houseless activity in the area. And so that's a constant communication challenge to let people know that we have to do these cleanup activities in partnership with other jurisdictions. There continues to be life loss safety concerns from our crew doing work in more challenging areas. There is some superficial levee damage that we've observed along Marine Drive, which is another reason why we really want to clear out that area so that we can inspect that damage more closely and assess what our next steps are around repairing the levee. And then, as Michael mentioned, there are limited relocation options, which continues to be a challenge. Next slide. So wanted to just touch briefly on what's been spent on the program this fiscal year in Pen 2. So far, there's been about 17,000 spent. That's gone towards some rapid response cleanups, some materials and graphic for signage, Cascadia Behavioral Health Care's outreach, as well as some administrative costs. Next slide. And I think that's all I had for you. I'm happy to answer any remaining questions that you have.
Oh, thank you for the presentation, Esther and Michael. Very good. I also want to reinforce Mary Helen's comments about Terrence Moses. Any synergy you can generate working with him would help both programs, I'm sure.
Jim,
Kathy?
maybe you can tell me another time, but with the joint office and their new Safe Rest Villages teams and the office that they have in Dan Ryan's office, I believe, and I might be wrong, but there's opportunity for funding in there. And would that be appropriate to come from you or me as a board member saying, hey, we're doing all this great work and can you do something?
I think the joint office is your best bet because they're the ones with larger outreach capacity as they're gearing up as the homeless services dollars come. Really what we need is that direct contact with the folks that are out there. And while Michael and his team are amazing and we are so grateful, there's a lot of people and a lot of ground to cover. And so I think just getting some more outreach workers out there would really help us a lot. And they're really smart about connections to services. That's their role. So again, just increasing that outreach is really critical. And Dan Ryan's office is really focused on those safe rest villages. And we're in pretty close contact with them, but their focus is less on outreach and more on developing alternative locations.
Well,
so,
and one of those locations is the Sunderland project on 33rd for people living in mobile homes. And
so that'll be helpful. And I think being supportive of that, of course, is very valuable for Commissioner Ryan's office and that team.
yeah, and I'm in close contact with them because we wrote the original plan that they're now using. So it's,
I think just respect.
I just wanted to know what the best route was if more funding, and you said more outreach workers and joint office.
I think contacting your county commissioner is probably your best approach. And again,
So,
I would request that
Commissioner Jayapal.
that you be kind and thoughtful because they're doing the best they can. And really what we're trying to do is keep our situation in front of them.
I don't dispute that at all. And they consistently say, how can we help? And this gives me a good opportunity. Okay.
Thank you.
So Kathy, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you both for the presentation. This is really fantastic work to see, and ditto everything Mary Helen said about the approach. I'm just curious if you have a sense, would doubling the budget or tripling the number of people doing outreach get the kind of coverage that you think is really needed? Do you have a sense of like what percentage of folks you've been able to reach out there on the ground in the past 6 months, or the 6-month window that you were describing?
I mean, having more people, I think, would be the biggest help. Like our team isn't huge, or we've lost some staff since things have opened back up. People have moved on to different positions or left Cascadia altogether. So I mean, we're working with a pretty small staff right now, and I think like Jim's saying, having more outreach workers out there on the ground, talking to people, trying to connect people to services, as well as getting that messaging out about, you know, maintaining the integrity of the flood management system. Just more boots on the ground would be the most important thing. So however that can get done, you know, we're trying to expand our team, but that's a challenge as far as like finding people to hire. So, you know, if there's outreach workers who are already employed with the joint office that they can send out there and, you know, coordinate with us and team up with us, that would be super beneficial to the cause out there.
And Kathy, I really appreciate your question. We're trying to balance our special districtness with our work on homeless. And so we've really tried to focus on those areas of critical need for access and protection of our infrastructure. It's an interesting dilemma because we're both criticized for not doing more and then also for straying from our mission. So we're trying to find that sweet spot and would be very interested in any direction the board would like to provide about how we're doing, trying to get that spot just right. Not too much, not too little, but mostly we're really focused on the safety of our crew. And again, Michael and his team have just been instrumental in helping us improve that.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. And it is a bit of a balancing act. And I think when I see the work that's being done, what I really see is, you know, the priority spots for the drainage districts are happening within a matrix of encampments around the region. And so work done in one place has ripple effects elsewhere. And so trying to see how many boots on the ground are needed in order to alleviate the pressures in the region, which by virtue of that will improve safety for the drainage district. And I know that's a hard question to answer, but just recognizing that this is all part of a landscape scale approach.
Yeah, and since you mentioned that, really getting at the underlying causes, which is, you know, investments in education and healthcare and mental health and addiction and all those other precursors that cause homelessness are really outside of the bounds of our mission and candidly the mission of the city of Portland. They do the built environment, and it's really the state and the county that are in that human services and healthcare area. So remembering that fundamentally there's some inequities and systemic issues that are causing the homelessness issue to begin with. And until we really address those, I think we're going to continue to see these symptoms and seeing people suffering from not having adequate shelter.
Well, before we move on, Karen, have you anything to contribute at this point? You're still muted.
I really appreciate seeing the house along Marine Drive taken down. We've been gone for a couple months and came back and it was turning into a real mansion out there. But I appreciate the work the different agencies have done to clear that eyesore away or precedent. And I don't have a solution for the homeless or the houseless, whichever way. I don't have a solution. I know that we could be there. If we don't have the money to pay our house taxes, we'll be moving into our RV probably along Marine Drive. But hopefully we're not as trashy. The trash is a real concern. 33rd is terrible. But I do appreciate all the work Cascadia is doing and the other agencies. It's a tremendous help.
I did see in the paper that the Mayor Wheeler has appointed a trash czar. She's an excellent project manager, Christine Leone. She's been with the city for a long time. So I'm hopeful that she'll get the tools she needs to help speed things up. I do see a lot of the agencies are gearing up again. Metro is in the same boat. And again, the joint office is staffing up to the degree that they can. So I think we have a long way to go, but I have some hope that the investments that the voters have provided to these agencies are going to start to make a difference.
Well, thank you. I guess we could probably continue worrying about the houseless for all the rest of the hour, but is there anything more that needs to be said on this issue?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Bill said. Karen Myers has been volunteering on a lot of the Solve events, and it's been great seeing you there. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, are we done then with this agenda item?
Just a round of appreciation for Aster too, who's really doing an amazing job. They've been a huge addition to our team and helping Randy and his crew and working with Michael. So thank you, Aster. Appreciate all your hard work.
Yes, you do a good presentation too.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. It was nice talking to you all today.
Thanks,
Okay.
Esther.
Next item on the agenda is our capital improvement plan with Deloan, I believe.
Well, good morning, all. I believe you received a PDF version of the draft CIP for Pen 2 in your packet for this material. I'm sorry, I don't know what page it's on per se, but it's probably one of the larger documents within there. I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen because there are a couple of items I wanted to highlight for your reference, and see if I can be successful in doing this. Are you all able to see the screen? I see head nods, which is great. So for those who have had the good fortune of working with me over the last couple of years, you've seen this version of a CIP before. Some of the texts will be familiar to you, but there are some changes. So I wanted to highlight that for you and talk a little bit about what those entail. This year's 5-year CIP, it totals just over $12 million, $12.6 million, with just under $1 million investments for next fiscal year. A version of the 5-year CIP was presented to you last meeting when Ben walked through the annual budget presentation. So the first page, I'm sorry, I'm going to scroll through this pretty quickly, but the first couple pages are similar texts as you've seen in past. They're more background information of what the capital improvement plan entails and the steps that we take as staff in order to identify projects and rank them based on these criteria that are found in step 2 here on page 2. There are some additional criteria that we look at that we don't have as much information about, but recognize their importance and should provide some value-added information to help adjust some of the priorities. And that's noted here in step 3. We will be digging into those criteria in more detail. And certainly when the new urban district is set up to help support their new mission statement and other pieces that are important to that board. One piece I want to make sure that we talk about today are the cost estimates. And this is on page 3 of your document and shown on the screen here now. Honestly, I've been a little frustrated about some of the costs during design and particularly construction for some projects, not just in your district, but for some other districts as well. And so I know that depending on the maturity of the project, greatly impacts the cost accuracy of that particular project. So if one is just doing some initial analysis, like we've done through our drainage master plans, for instance, the cost accuracy won't be as good, for instance, as when we get construction bids. It will be a lot tighter, right, during construction. But the tricky part is trying to give you as board members as much information to help you make informed decisions about how to spend money out in the district. So what I've done here is added some more detail about different levels of cost estimate depending on what types of documents we take from in order to come up with estimates. And so ideally, what we would like to do is get to the point where we're presenting you with some more confident estimates for final design and construction when those projects are set to be authorized for funding. So in order to get to that point, I'd like to get to a class 3 estimate, which is on this table, which is the middle of the table there. To do that, we have to go through a more preliminary design. Some people refer to it as a common milestone, as a 30% design milestone. But some more preliminary design in order to feel more comfortable with what the remaining design construction will be. And the construction dollars are usually where most of the project costs are, where it's 80% or so for a lot of the project costs. So to do that, my proposal is that I may be showing more projects starting just in a pre-design phase, and then not put a lot of stock into estimates for final design and construction until that pre-design phase is over. An example of a class 3 project is the Corps' feasibility study project. And as you know, that was $3 million worth of work just to get to 30% design. I have no interest in spending that much money on pre-design work for most of our projects, but I do think it may be $50,000 or $100,000 to get to develop more information, so we have a much better idea of what the scope would be to fix the problem. You could all think of the Northeast 13th Avenue pump station discharge lines, how that scope changed over time, and it was a frustrating thing for me. I'm sure it was frustrating for you, and so I'm proposing we go down this path and not authorize or put y'all in a position not to authorize final design or construction until we have better information, like McKenna was able to do eventually at its 30% design milestone. So you'll note that in the CIP, the class 4 and class 5 project estimates are only for projects that are in the out years. That are years 2, 3, 4, 5 or so, or even beyond. And my intent, and I don't know if I did this at 100%, my intent is to get to the point where I'm only presenting you with information at a class 3 level. And so we have, as I said, a better handle on the scope and the cost estimates. Unfortunately, in the last couple of years, construction costs have been really chaotic, and it's very difficult even for professionals in the cost estimation world to project what costs are going to be for capital projects. But I mean, that's our job, so we got to figure out the best way we can to give you the right information. You'll see in some cases that there are some that are in class 3, and for those projects that are closer to construction, I know there's one in particular in MCDD, that board will see a class 1 designation for that project because we're about to bid on that project. So this is new information. So I want to make sure we highlighted this for you, but the intent here is to try to give you better information so you feel more confident about the budgets that you're passing, particularly in the next 12 months or so. So that's one piece. As I've normally done in recent years, I try to get the highlights of what the CIP entails. Next year, the the largest portion of the project costs are related to the PMLS work, but we also have work to continue other projects, including the pump station project I just referenced, as long as some ditch improvement projects. We have made progress on the ditch behind Dick's Sporting Goods. So I know that contract's been signed to purchase the unit. So we'll have some progress there, but we're also moving on to other sites, including one on Northeast 6th Avenue. And then for the 5-year CIP work, it's again dominated by the PMLS costs. There are other related costs in here that support other levy projects. I may have been misinformed or earlier in not collecting enough information about the status of the off-ramp from I-5 and the levy low spots just north of the golf course. Some other projects might be able to fund those. So some of those costs may drop out of your 5-year CIP as a result. The I-5, improvements, the Cloverleaf, that I guess it would be the southbound exit at the Marine Drive exit on I-5. It's going to be part of the new bridge project that is just moving into, I think they said they were at 2% design, but they're moving towards acceptance from all those parties who are stakeholders. In any event, if that goes through, that our interest for that site we hope will be addressed with that project, and we're actively connecting with those project members, as you heard from a recent presentation. In any event, there's more details in here. I wanted to scroll down to the CIP. It looks similar to what you've seen before. There is this cost accuracy column here from everywhere from class 5 to class 1. And in addition, I've added another column this year to talk about or reference if there's any external funding for that particular project, for a quick cheat sheet, if you will, to help you understand where some of that money is coming from. So that's an overview of the CIP, and I am happy to answer questions that you might have.
Bill, I'm hoping you can help me understand the interaction of the PMLS and our capital improvement plan. I noticed in reviewing the PMLS project a few weeks ago that there were some things that were listed in that program, like the second motor and the 13th Street pump station, and there were a number of other items. If we do that on the taxpayer's dollar in Pen 2, do we get credit for that as our contribution toward the PMLS project? What's the interaction between the things we go ahead with and things that are in that plan?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I see Colin is logged in, and want to give him an opportunity to answer first. He's willing.
Yeah, thank you, Val. That's a great question. So there is the ability, projects that are identified in the plan that we want to move ahead with beforehand, we can do that. They don't want to disincentivize us taking action on that, and then we can receive credit for part or most of the work that's associated with that. So we're looking at that in MCDD for Pump Station 2. And I'm wrangling a little one as my bigger one is going down. Sorry about that. Yeah, but so in short, Val, we can get credit for doing some of that work earlier that's been identified in the plan.
Let's make sure we do get credit if it,
Absolutely. No, we've been working with the core team to sort of show them exactly what's in our CIP so they understand timing of some of those projects that we would like to move forward. Trash rakes at Pump Station 4, some improvements at Pump Station 2, and things like 13th Avenue's pumps. So yeah, we'll definitely be able to leverage that and still move forward with the project.
Thank you.
So
Anyone
in the CIP, at least that last spreadsheet in Appendix A, there's reference, there's a footnote 3, that references which projects could be part of that cost share part of the for the core. Currently, those projects aren't scheduled until years 6 through 10. So that's FY 2028 to FY 2032. So it's quite possible and likely that if the PMLS moves forward as we hope it does, it will finish those projects before we get a chance to start digging into them.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Guess not. Thank you, Bill.
Okay, thanks for your time. And so just as a reminder, along with the annual budget, you'll be presented a version of this, a final version of this for approval at your June meeting. Thank you.
The agenda now turns to our executive director, Mr. Middle.
Thank you, Chair. I want to acknowledge that it's noon. I have a list of things. I did get up at 2:45 this morning in Chicago, our time, to fly here. So if I'm more incoherent than normal, that's my excuse. I want to start by thanking Supervisor Kincaid. She's been sharing some really interesting and valuable resources from PSU and other places that are really informative and fun. Thank you. I appreciate. Please keep those ideas and suggestions coming. I want to say welcome to Eric Molander. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. He had a death in the family, but it's a nice addition to your board. I want to remind you that we hope you don't have questions about the budget that you're going to approve at the format meeting in June. If you do have any questions, please let us know as soon as you can. As part of the annual amendments to the intergovernmental agreement with MCDD, we will be proposing a few changes. So we'll be sharing more information about that before your format meeting. One of the things we're looking to do is to reduce some of our administrative costs. So we've been starting off with the urban district, trying to find ways to simplify some of the billings that we do, so we can devote more resources to advancing the new district. So more to come on that. We are gearing up this fall to finish the repair of the levee in Bridgeton. And I want to thank Bill and Kevin and his team for keeping all that moving. Carrie has been involved in making sure we have all the support from our friendly local agencies. A few internal things that we've been working on. We have a pay equity study going on to ensure that we are in compliance with the Oregon pay equity law. And Tracy has been moving that forward, and we're getting close to being able to finalize that to ensure that we're paying everybody who does like work equally and that we're competitive in the marketplace, given how challenging it is to hire folks right now. I want to give a shout out to Evan. We have a draft poll that should be done and fully completed by the end of the fiscal year to help us understand a little bit better the new rates that we want to work with the urban district on and the level of support there may be for capital investments. So we'll be a lot smarter by the end of the fiscal year in terms of where the public stands, in particular the public that is in urban Multnomah County outside of the floodplain, because we've not worked with them before. MCDD also has an equity policy, and we are advancing that through the development of an equity framework for the urban district. Rather than doing two different versions of that, one for MCDD and one for the urban, we've collapsed it and we're moving that forward through the urban district. If you have questions about that, let me know, but I'm excited about the work. I want to invite you to Michael Jordan's retirement event, which is on June 1st, and you'll get some more information about that. I want to celebrate McKenna Bell, who has obtained her PE, and so she's now an official engineer, which is a huge accomplishment and adds to our staff capacity. And we are in the midst of hiring for a director of finance and administration. Keith will is here on an interim basis and is really wanting to go back to retirement. And so we have some good applicants so far. The position's not closed yet, but it's getting close. So we'll come back to you with more information about that. We're also hiring an assistant finance manager because we have really a strong emphasis in keeping the books and maintaining public trust. And with dissolution and the complexity of our current system, Janet really deserves some additional resources. So we're recruiting for that right now. We had an offer accepted for Brian Eberhardt's replacement. A gentleman called Matt Berlin has accepted an offer. I don't have the start date at my fingertips because it happened while I was gone, but we're excited to be replacing Brian. And we're very close. Emily is close to making an offer, maybe has made an offer for our new office coordinator. So we're excited about that as well. We had some good candidates for that position. And for those of you who may not be aware, we've shifted Emily over and she's been amazing, carrying at least 2 jobs for several months. But she's now helping all things transition and trying to project manage that. And we really need her in that role. So we're excited to have an office manager coming on board. And with that, because it's 12:04 and I'm highly caffeinated, I think I better stop talking.
Hey, Jim.
Yes.
One thing you missed is your Bike the Levees event.
Yes. I don't have the date in front of me. I'm sorry.
June 4th.
June 4th. Yeah. So that should be really fun. And if you want to come out and ride your bike on the levees, it's the same route that has happened in the past. And we're excited to have Aster project managing that. And Mary Helen, thanks for your insights into the PIR event and the other issues there.
Yeah, I wish you luck on that one, but that's something you guys can work out. The other thing I wanted to mention was that information that I sent you about the architecture of water.
Yeah, the archaeology
That might,
roadshow.
yeah, if you could share that with other board members, I think some people would find it interesting. I mean, it's not directly related, but sort of informative. So
We'll get that shared, Mary Helen. And I really appreciated that resource. It's super cool. Thank you. I actually shared it with my daughter who's into water as well. So again, I appreciate you sharing those things. Your connections are really helpful in keeping us informed.
Do we have any other comments, questions from the board? If not, the meeting of Pen 2 is adjourned.
Thank you all for your time. Really appreciate you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Yep. Bye.